There's a quote I love from the great Stoic Marcus Aurelius, and it goes something like this. I am constantly amazed by how easily we love ourselves above all others, and yet we put more stock in the opinions of others than in our own estimation of self. How much credence we give to the opinions of our peers have of us, and how little to our very own. To me, this echoes in all aspects of life, but in particular, how we view our competition, and in contrast, the perspective we have of our own businesses. To be clear, there is nothing wrong with studying your competitors, but there's a point where research stops informing your strategy and actually starts replacing your own self-trust, your self-belief.
For too long, entrepreneurs and business owners have been told they have to choose between profit and purpose. If you're tired of burning out, done chasing someone else's version of success, and ready to grow with more purpose, prosperity, and peace of mind, you're in the right place. Because every business has the potential to do good and do well. I'm Chase Friedman, and this is In Pursuit of Purpose, where strategy meets soul.
All right, so in this episode, we're talking about one of the sneakiest traps that we fall into as founders and entrepreneurs. It's not failure, it's not lack of talent, it's not lack of ideas, it's comparison. We know this. We've drilled this before. It's the kind of comparison that feels productive because we're calling it research. But if we're being honest, sometimes it's just like fear wearing a fancy blazer. It's like respectable, it's professional, it's diligent, it's buttoned up, it's holding a spreadsheet. It's still fear. There's a very specific kind of panic that hits when you're building your first business. I've been there. It's like this imposter syndrome creeping in, right? You look at someone else's website and all of a sudden it looks like the best thing. It looks polished and clean and clear. They've got testimonials. Look at the numbers. Look at the metrics. Well, I don't have what they have, and how am I going to stack up in the eyes of the consumer? You might think their message is cleaner, their offer sounds tighter, and maybe it is. Their testimonials are glowing. Their LinkedIn post has 743 comments from people named Brad saying things like, great insights. And suddenly, before you've even started, you're no longer building your own business. You're suffocating. You're underwater comparing yourself to who else is out there. And who knows their circumstances? Maybe they've been at it for years, right? You don't know their backstory. We do this a lot in all aspects of our life, right? We compare ourselves to the next guy or girl next to us, the next father or mother. We evaluate ourselves based on our perception of others. When inside, we know this. Everyone is second guessing themselves. You're doing this self-sabotage. You're investigating your own inadequacy. And that's where the trap happens. What starts as diligent market research becomes this spiral of comparison. What starts as strategy becomes this like silent and slow abandonment of your own unique perspective. The thing that makes you you, the thing that makes you great, the thing that is going to attract your divine right clients to you. And underneath all of this is one question. What am I doing wrong? What am I missing? That question gets super, super loud when you're building something of your own for the very first time, especially when you're moving from an employee with an established institution to a founder, having to set up your own firmament, your own ground to stand on. When you're trying to turn your experience and your expertise and your values, your lessons, your stories, your knowledge, your IP and point of view into a business people are going to trust and pay for, right? We've talked about this with category positioning. Understand where there's red ocean and where you need to find blue ocean. You need to develop your own sandbox. That comes from market research and competitive research, but leave it there. And in fact, rise above the level of specific competitor analysis and look at market analysis. Know what else exists so you can stand apart from it. You need to know what your audience is already hearing a lot of, buying, ignoring, craving, right? Like step into their shoes. That's how you find the white space. Like there's a point where too much research stops informing your strategy. It can become paralyzing, paralysis by analysis. Guilty as charged. That's where this can become dangerous because comparison doesn't just make you feel inadequate or less than. It actually makes you strategically unclear, confused, opaque. Let me tell you from experience, founders and business owners that lack clarity, especially those that have been led astray by chasing the competition, this does not build momentum. This leads to this sort of circling the wagons, constant tweaking and stalling and blending in and undercharging and over-explaining. And before you know it, you're attracting the wrong people. You're attracting maybe the same exact people that your competitors are, but you're maybe not as established as they are. And so you're going to lose that game every time. Let me say one thing plainly. Your competitors are not the reason that your brand is unclear. They're just the place that you kind of go, that outlet, when you're not trusting your own positioning yet. You're self comparing against people that are already in the market, people that are already seemingly having success. Again, pull back the curtain. You'd be surprised what you see in terms of what a quote unquote successful company or a brand or entrepreneur looks like, regardless of what they claim. We know this. We know there is an epidemic of smoke and mirrors in the marketing realm. You may not trust your own positioning and expertise yet, and that's okay. That might sting a little. Good. This is not sugarcoating session. We're here because we're not shaming anyone. We've all done it. I've done it. I've looked at someone else's business. I do it all the time and think maybe that's what I should be doing, or maybe that's direction, or that's what I want my brand to look and sound like. I always wish there was a little bit of that 2% sort of tweak and adjustment and improvement when I see something that inspires me. And that's wonderful. There's always ways we can learn from the competition and evaluate, but make sure to have a filter through your perspective. Don't just go and pilfer and plagiarize. Filter it through your own perspective on what's going to work for you. Build your own toolbox, different established tools, but your own unique sort of mix of how you tackle problems. So I'll say it again. Here's the truth. The more you chase your competition, the more comparable you become. Competitive commoditization. Everyone's starting to look alike and sound alike, especially when everyone's running their messaging and their copy and their content through the same rigors and the same platforms of AI. You know how that works. That is pulling from the same knowledge base. So of course it's going to sound regurgitated. You've got to put your own voice into it. I use these tools as well, but you'll be damn sure that I am going to infuse my personality, my voice, and tweak and shift and tone so that it sounds like me. It is an extension of me. And guess what? The more comparable you come, the easier it is for people to judge you on the wrong things, right? These finite sort of value props: price, polish, popularity, follower count, years in business, testimonials, who has the cleaner website. We know that only one or two or maybe a small handful can win in these things, especially pricing. Otherwise, a lot of these surface level values and benefits tend to kind of blur together. They're not really benefits, they're not transformation. This is window dressing for the stuff that matters. So don't get caught up in that. It is a brutal game for a first time founder to play because your edge has got to be not in copying the visible parts, the window dressing of someone else's business, the look and feel of it. That's their own. Leave it to them. Your edge has got to be in clarifying the parts of your business, your expertise that they can't copy, making it incomparable. These are things like your lived experience, your perspective, values, stories, standards, proof, position. I don't care if you've got a ton of it. Just be open and real and raw and honest. And you'd be surprised. People will relate on a deeper, more emotional level than cool imagery and cool graphics on a website or a pitch deck or on a LinkedIn post. Let people know your ability to see the real problem underneath the obvious problem. That's where differentiation begins. Not in becoming a slightly shinier version of someone else, but becoming a much clearer version of yourself. And this matters even more right now. These are universal truths always, but this matters even more now because we're living through this massive shift in how people work. People are not just changing jobs. They are changing their relationship to work itself, how they work, who they work for, right? There's this recent study that comes out, 2026 State of the Workplace Study. 79% of workers are more likely to accept a new job than they were even just a year ago. 66% have already changed or considered changing their career fields in the past year. 40%, more or less, have recently quit their jobs or are considered quitting. You see where this is going? This is a movement. This is a great reckoning of people migrating in and out of the workforce or their traditional career paths, which means more competitors saturating the landscape, saturating the market. More work you need to do to make sure you are standing out and standing up amidst that white noise, right? This is not just a workforce trend. This is a foundational identity shift, like a generational shift. People are asking themselves, Well, what do I want my life to feel like? What do I not want to put up or tolerate anymore at my job? What do I want to build? Could I build something of my own? What would that look like? And it's not just thought, it's action. You're seeing people migrate and make that leap. So when you leave the structure of a safe job and a W-2 in an established company, you leave that borrowed credibility of that company, the reputation, the brand, the structures, the systems that is established and built over time and energy. And that is something that is built over years and effort and tweaking and toiling. You don't have that to rest on anymore, right? No title to hide behind, no department, no brand name that's making you instantly recognizable. So the market is now asking, all right, well, who the fuck are you? But that's what it sounds like. What do you do? Why should I trust you? Why should I choose you? I've got all these options of people blowing me up on LinkedIn. And that's exactly when comparison gets really loud because you want to grab onto something safe and solid and secure to latch onto so it doesn't feel like you're constantly on this sort of unsteady waters. And it's new territory, it's unsteady. There's a difference in identity from employee to founder. Employee identity is trained to look for the right answer, the politically correct answer, the one that's going to get approved by leadership. The founder identity requires you to boldly and bravely choose a clear direction and go walk that path when you don't know what's on the other side. So comparison will give you this like illusion of certainty, but conviction requires you to tolerate uncertainty. Comparison says, oh, they figured that out. I'm going to go do that. Conviction says, I might be seeing something different for a reason. It might not be the popular opinion, but let me explore that. Let me lean into that. Who's with me? This is about being intentionally disruptive, which, quite frankly, in your content and in your own tone and voice is essential. It lets people know what you stand for. If you want to build a brand that actually stands out and wins you more clients with a more clear offer and clear positioning, you've got to have conviction in bold faith in possibly taking a divergent path. This goes back to category strategy and category positioning. So again, this is not a case for ignoring your competitors. It's a case for putting them in the proper priority. Study the market, know what exists, understand what your audience is already buying, notice the patterns, the gaps, the sea of sameness. It's useful, it's contextual, but don't let that be your only context. Don't let that be your compass, right? That's got to come from you. Market research asks what already exists. And then comparison is like, well, where do I fit in and why am I not there yet? And then market research is, okay, where's the gap that I fit in? But then don't slip into the whole, well, gosh, what's wrong with me? Why don't I look as impressive or sound as impressive as some of the other folks out there? This is where a lot of people that are making this leap of faith into building and starting their own business get lost and never return. This is that point of no return. You don't have an infinite runway. You've got to pick a direction and have clear line of sight of where you're going. Because if you're second guessing yourself right out of the gate, this is where you can lose yourself. You can kind of spend weeks, months overanalyzing this into paralysis. Don't ask for permission. This is where I really love the philosophy and framework of category design. And if you haven't checked them out, the category pirates are brilliant at this, right? It's a couple of expat, high-powered sort of marketing consultant gurus that were seeing things differently from the status quo and have built their own sort of framework and IP and content and knowledge base around sort of the outliers, right? Those that are willing to go beyond the status quo, stop playing in red ocean, and truly create something, a category and a market all their own. Something that may not have existed before and does take effort and does take time and does take education, but it's one that they can win the day. It's one they can lead truly. This is creating new market opportunities where there was none before. This is stopping to kind of fight over thinner and thinner slices of the pie of an established market and go and creating your own new sandbox and saying, who's with me? So this is where the category pirates talks a lot about the idea of designing your own category, right? Stop competing harder inside an existing one. In this world, category strategy is not just marketing, it's a business strategy. It's got to lend itself and lead every aspect of how you build and conduct your business. The core tenets of it are framing the problem, naming the problem. The big three foundational questions you got to ask for category design is framing the problem, naming the category, a new category that you're trying to establish, claiming your own unique POV, something disruptive, something new, something that's, again, beyond the status quo, and building a business with a unique and compelling strategy that others cannot easily compete or replicate with. And I love this because it changes the question we're asking. Instead of asking ourselves, how do I compete better against everyone else? And we know that's oftentimes a losing proposition, an uphill battle to try to carve out not only just some market share, but majority market share to really grow and to really scale. And instead, you start asking yourself, all right, well, what category, model, method, sandbox am I actually here to create or redefine or lead? You've got to think four dimensionally. You've really got to rethink what people's problems or challenge or pain points are, but sort of reframe them in a different way, how you can approach that and resolve that in a different way. And in some cases, it's sort of answering the question that people haven't even asked yet, right? You take sort of Henry Ford and in the Model T, and he famously says, if I ask people, what they would want, it would be a faster horse. He wasn't thinking in terms of how do I improve the horse-drawn carriage as the main mode of transportation, rethinking the whole ballgame. When you're only competing inside the existing category, you're playing by the same rule book. You inherit the same language, same promises, comparisons. It is a death match. It's called red ocean for a reason. Visualize it. Sometimes like the real opportunity is not playing in someone else's sandbox. Build your own sandbox. Doesn't mean you need to invent something so confusing and out of bounds that no one's ever heard of before. Let's be realistic about this. You don't need to go and be the next Apple or Google or Netflix, although those are pioneering category designers. Okay. The world has enough of these people that are burning through investor money and have a big enough ego and vision. They're going to go run that race. And that's great. And maybe some of them will succeed. Most won't. But do something that feels familiar, but fresh and new and innovative. This is about POV. Develop a clear point of view about what you think is broken or missing or outdated or misunderstood or even underserved in the current category. See the white space and articulate it. That's the move. Not I'm better than the other coach or consultant, or I'm cheaper than the other guy or girl. My framework is better than all of theirs. Point out the flaws in the system. Point out the code in the matrix, right? Unplug. Share your gospel. I'm serious. Like the way this category has always been solving the problem is no longer sufficient or complete, or there could be something better or something more. Here's what I think is missing. Here's the new way forward. Here's how I want to help you get there. Okay. Be that guide, be that sage. That's category positioning. Michael Porter, again, brilliant business strategist, argued that real strategy is not just doing what everyone else does a little bit better, marginally better. Strategy is choosing a unique and valuable position that competitors cannot easily match. I was part of this great workshop called Level C with Marty Neumeier. He equated business strategy as like jujitsu. How you're leveraging the other opponent against themselves, how you are making moves that they cannot counter or won't counter. So category design takes that even further. It asks you to stop competing just on better marginally and start positioning around different. And that's what a lot of founders miss, or they don't know they can go there. They don't believe they can go there. They're just trying to race to get to market. Copy the tactics, the homepage, the offer, the hook, the funnel, the lead magnet. Like, give me, okay, expert who's already done it. Give me your framework because it's worked for you. And let me just kind of go and regurgitate and then copy that for me. Does that really sound like the best method for you? I get we want a little bit of a hack, a cheat sheet, a cheat code. But if we're being honest, we're building our own thing. Just because it's worked for so-and-so LinkedIn guru in that poetic LinkedIn post of how they broke through the algorithm and went viral and scaled their company 10x in 10 nights. I mean, whatever this is, that's great. That's their framework. They probably toiled a hell of a lot and had a lot of failure to get there. And if that works for you, awesome. I love that. But most of the time, they're just selling you something that is simply going to be a copycat in a market that they already own and command. They're selling you into their market that they lead and saying, all right, well, you can use my model. You're never going to be as good as me at executing it. And maybe you'll have a kind of a small kind of share, but I'm still going to be the leader. instead of empowering and educating people, which it is to an extent, you're actually kind of making like minions. You're actually making followers of yourself because you're basically grooming them not to think for themselves, but to think within the constructs of your own IP and templates and framework. It's kind of counterintuitive if you really think about it. So think to yourself, ask, what is this new sandbox I'm here to build? So I'll share a little bit of my own experience and story on this journey because I've hit those roadblocks and those hurdles and done those lookalike models, right? I've had to work through this in my own business. For years, I built Vanquish Media Group as a brand marketing agency. We served clients, we did campaigns, we built strategies. We were great at telling stories, still are, help brands grow. But I kept running into this block. There was this friction in the back of my mind. I think I'm doing and saying the right things and building the right models, but I'm really just kind of copying other people's playbooks, other people that I thought were really leading the field in terms of marketing agencies. And we were certainly not the biggest or the most experienced or had all the bells and whistles, right? A lot of times, especially early on, playing from sort of a catch-up mentality. But we weren't, and I wasn't asking of myself, what's the work I really want to be known for? Not just what I can do or what lights me up or what I really want to do. I wasn't even asking that question. It was just what the agency can kind of sell to be competitive and penetrate the market and carve out our own little space. Then I started asking myself, well, what do I actually believe I'm here to help people with? And maybe how can I help them solve that in a new and different way that doesn't look like everyone else's offerings? I remember looking at other agencies and consultants all the time with this like mix of admiration and then irritation and insecurity, which is a very charming cocktail, by the way. And I highly recommend it if you enjoy ruining your own afternoon. I'd see someone with a cleaner offer and a sharper niche and thinking maybe that's what I'm supposed to do. Maybe I should stop talking about purpose, which is something that I believed in because it helped me. And I wanted to do that for others. Maybe I should dilute that a little bit more and come back down to earth, making this easier to recognize. But every time I try to squeeze the work into someone else's category, it just got more lookalike. It got more commoditized. That was the signal. That was the breakthrough. It was realizing I was not confused because I had no lane. I was confused because I was trying to choose from all competitors at once. But in reality, until I took the time to stop and look back and reflect and look from on high about how I worked and who I wanted to serve, my work was sitting at this intersection of storytelling and brand strategy and business development and personal growth, purpose, marketing systems, founder identity, hard-earned business scars, but like underneath, like the compulsion to help people see the thing in themselves and their business that they could not quite see yet for themselves. And that's what's manifested as this profit with purpose methodology, right? Or purpose positioning. It's not trying to have people replicate what's worked for me. It's simply just a template and a framework for them to create something for themselves on their own by themselves. It's just provocatively asking the right questions so that they can become more clear about what it is they want and how to get there. The undercurrent of that belief is that your purpose is not some inspirational statement that you can just bury in your brand deck somewhere and never look back to. It's got to be your positioning, your greatest strength and edge in a crowded marketplace, right? It's got to be your greatest edge. Otherwise, you're competing same things that everyone else is. Race to the bottom in terms of features and function and price and promotion, because your values can shape your strategy. Your story can build trust. And there's real business weight and ROI behind it. Okay. There's a great case study by the Zeno Group, how purpose or the strength of purpose actually helps the business bottom line. And I've shared these stats before, but I keep coming back to them because they're incredibly compelling and undeniable. Consumers are 4 to 6 times more likely to trust, to champion, to buy from, to protect, to be loyalists, ambassadors to a company with a strong purpose that aligns with their values compared to a commoditized brand where they can't really see the difference, right? They see features and price and all these different things, and that's great. They might transact on those every once in a while, but true brand evangelists, brand ambassadors, brand loyalists, brand tribe, that comes when you wear purpose on your sleeve. They've even reported that companies and brands recognized by their definitive defining sort of values, mission, purpose beyond the bottom line grew more than twice as fast over 10 to 12 year period than companies that simply just blended in and didn't have a defining or unique mission, a greater vision beyond selling products. So it's Deloitte even has framed purpose not as separate from business strategy, but it's actually integrated and tied to economic performance. Right. So whether you want to check or box or not, this stuff is undeniable. Okay. This gives you market edge, competitive advantage, long-term value and creation for customers, brand loyalty. So no, purpose is not the soft alternative to strategy. Purpose is when activated is strategy. All right, so let's get practical. If comparison is the problem, how are we going to move back into clarity? So I'm going to do something that I like to call the can't copy this audit. It's very meta. What are the parts of your brand that someone else cannot easily copy? They can copy your offer format, your style, your lead magnet, your headlines, but they can't copy your purpose, your perspective, your lived proof, your intangibles. So going back to my framework, yes, it's a framework, but I want you to make it your own. That has 5 parts: purpose, positioning, purpose, perspective, persona, proof, and positioning. Put these into a little blender, a little Venn diagram, and this is going to get you on your journey to start designing your own category sandbox. Okay. The purpose asks, why does this business need to exist beyond making money? Dig in, dig deep. It's not decoration, it's direction. Perspective, what do I believe that my competitors do not? Right? This is all about differentiation. Positive disruption. We talked about this, right? When they zig, you zag. Another great Marty Neumeier book and quote. Persona asks, who do I understand more deeply than most people? Who do I really get at a deep level? Or who do I connect with deeply on an emotional, value-driven level? Don't just purpose wash. Don't dabble in vagaries. Bleed on the first line, as I like to say. Okay? Requires intimacy and vulnerability. And then proof. All right, what can I prove? Doesn't have to be by the numbers or even testimonials, but what's my reasons to believe or reasons to believe in the eyes of my customers? How do I prove what I've said I'm going to set out to do? And then position. What do I want to be known for? Again, do you want to be known for playing in someone else's sandbox or building your own? It's the space that like you want to occupy in someone's mind where you're not competing for attention constantly. Something memorable, something claimable, something ownable, right? Something that sticks in their mind because it's not quite what they're used to hearing or seeing or the norm. And then when you go back and blend that with category design, you're asking, okay, well, what sandbox am I creating, redefining, or claiming? It sounds big, but doesn't have to be grandiose. For a first-time founder, your category might begin as like a sharper version of an existing niche or a clearer problem, a more drilled in specific audience, or your own new way of solving an old pain point. But you're teaching people how to think about your work. That's the key. Category positioning is not just naming what you do, it's naming the world that your work belongs in. Marty Neumeier has this great line that I love. Your brand is not what you say it is, it's what they say it is. It's kind of like a Bezos comment, right? Your brand is what they say about you when you're not in the room. So what do you want them to say? Not just like, she's great, he's smart, they do marketing. You can apply that anywhere. You want something specific. Like she helps first-time founders turn their experience into a clear offer and brand, or he helps consultants stop sounding like everyone else and claim a sharper positioning that they can claim as their own, right? Giving people language. So here's a practical exercise. Take 15 minutes, no competitor websites, no social, no tabs, and just answer some of these questions for yourself to get kind of the thought train, flow, whatever you want to call it, moving. So number 1, who am I currently comparing myself to? And then say, fuck them, I'm going to do me. Just kidding. Number 2, what am I assuming that they haven't figured out? Number 3, what am I tempted to copy? What looks really cool or sexy or enticing? 4, what do I believe that they do not? They zig, but I zag. Number 5, what does my audience need from me? What can I provide them that they cannot get from that competitor? That competitor is not willing to go there. Number 6, what can I prove? Okay. Number 7, what category, sandbox, or market am I here to claim? And then pick one action. Rewrite your one-liner, your homepage, your offer. Narrow the audience. Choose. Just pick a lane. Because your code, your nervous system is going to want more than one round of research. It's going to say, just keep checking. Just make sure you've checked every competitor and make sure that you're doing it just like them or as good as them. Where's that going to get you? Then use the market for refinement. That order matters, but in that order. So positioning statement can go like this. I believe, like what's the core belief around your work? I help who I specifically help and want to serve, unlike others, meaning differentiation from the competitors. And the sandbox that I'm trying to build is this. What's the new category or model or method or mindset that I want to be known for? So leaving you with this, here's the thing that I wish more first-time founders understood. Your competitors are not proof that you're lagging behind or you're not where they are yet. They're proof that a market exists. That's great. We know that. And a lot of times, maybe red ocean. The real work that you have to do is not just stare at that and look at it and think, how do I become more like that? How do I achieve that level of success? The real work, the scary work, is to ask, what do I see that they don't? What do I believe that they are not willing to say? They're not willing to go there. What do I understand about my people, my tribe that keeps the market? What do I understand about my people, my tribe that I want to serve that the market keeps missing and ignoring? What can I prove? What am I willing to claim? This is where your edge begins. Comparison is just going to delay the commitment. So as long as you're still researching, you do not have to choose. And as long as you're still tweaking, you're not going to publish. And as long as you're still studying everyone else, you're not going to stand on your own point of view because you do not need more noise. You need more clarity. You do not need to become more like the market. There's enough of them out there. Stop playing their game. You need to become more recognizable, more iconic, more disruptive, more you to the right people in it.
Thanks for listening to In Pursuit of Purpose. If this episode helped you, please follow the show, leave a quick review, and maybe even share it with someone who's been building something meaningful of their own. And remember, you are more than ready for this next step. Head over to my website at chaseryanfriedman.com, and you can start building your own purpose positioning strategy, explore free resources, and even find more inspiration for the road ahead. I'm Chase Friedman. Onwards.